So what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.
I blame it on industry. I blame it on my own hypocrisy. It's education and politicians. No one's willing to step up and speak.
Cannabis Radio Show here on the Lifestyle Radio Network. I'm your host, Al Graham. Tonight on the Pace Radio Show, I am here with my joint host, Northern Ontario, Kim Cooper. And for tonight's show, she has invited a guest who has written several books, who has helped patients, and has been in the news lately over some mail. But before we learn more, I'd like to have a little talk with Kim. Kim, are you there?
I am, Al. How are you tonight?
Yeah, I'm good. And how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Had a busy day out on the road doing some traveling and made it all back safe and sound and ready for tonight's show.
Good. It sounded like when you left me a message there earlier, it was a big long road trip, about 6 hours.
Yeah, I went down to visit with my daughter down in New Liskeard, and I brought her and my granddaughter back for a nice extended weekend visit.
Good. It's always enjoyable when you can meet with family. So.
It sure is. Shout out downstairs to my granddaughter Aurora, who's intently listening. Hi, baby girl.
That's good. Okay, and a quick little news article before we bring our guest in for today. I was reading there today, Fortune magazine. They were talking about the dispensaries and the effects that they're having on the licensed producers.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I feel so bad for them. I really do. Not really at all. The thing that really caught me was a quote from one of the guys from Organigram, who said he's not necessarily against dispensaries, provided they buy from LPs. Well, I take issue with that right away. We're fighting the fact that LPs have a monopoly on the grow industry. So why should they be afforded a monopoly to deal with dispensaries right now when that's exactly what we're fighting in court?
Yeah, exactly. I see in here they mentioned that they figure about 30% of the patients go to the dispensaries instead of going to the licensed producers.
Yeah, and they're taking issue with those numbers, but in my point of view, they should be looking at perhaps why they're losing those patients in those numbers to the dispensaries. Perhaps it's an issue on their end that they need to take a look at to draw patients back to LPs. I mean, there's nothing wrong with good competition in Canada. That's what we're built on. Friendly competition in business and elsewhere. And if you want the clientele to come to your business, well, then you have to bring that business up to that clientele standards. And if they're not, they're going to go elsewhere. Yes, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's how our country was built.
Exactly. Well, I'm sure maybe at some point our guests may have something to say about these guys. So let's bring them in. All right, Kim. So.
Sounds good.
All right. At this time, I introduce our guest, who I said is an author and has been in the news lately. We'd like to welcome to the show Dana Larsen. Dana, are you there?
I sure am, and thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for coming on. We always appreciate you coming on and talking to our listeners.
Yeah, my pleasure. Always happy to talk about marijuana, and there's a lot to talk about these days. There's so much going on in Canada and all around the world.
Exactly. It's constantly in the news, which is good. It's in the news. It means there's conversation happening, right?
Well, and that's what it takes. A lot of people talking about this and discussions and conversations between family members and between friends and between politicians and everybody else. And we've come a long way over the last 20 years since I started getting involved in this movement, and we got quite a bit of work ahead of us still, but I'm feeling pretty good about how things are going these days.
Yeah. I agree completely, 100%. And I'm sure Kim does as well. Kim?
Absolutely, 100%. As you said, I'm very encouraged with the way things are going. But I put all of that thanks to the courts, not necessarily to the government at this point, but to the court system. And I think that's why we are where we are today, is thankful to the courts.
Oh, I agree with that. I mean, the government they've never lessened the laws, and maybe Trudeau's going to do so in the future, but as it stands right now, all of Harper's mandatory minimums are still in force and still being enforced. But I would say it's a two-pronged attack. It's been the courts, definitely, have been where all of our victories have come, and through civil disobedience and just ignoring the law or standing up to the law and defying it openly and plainly. That also has really brought our movement forward together quite a bit over the last few decades, and I think it's a combination of those things that's going to get us to the end and to really legalize it in Canada.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think we would have been as far in the court system and in the public polls of a public opinion if it weren't for the amounts of civil disobedience and protests and so forth. People standing up and saying no more. That's what's gotten us to where we are.
Yeah, the cannabis movement is really Canada's largest ever civil disobedience movement in our nation's history. And it's been so successful that people don't even realize that a lot of these laws are still on the books. I tell people that bongs and water pipes and vaporizers and even books that tell you how to grow marijuana, those things are all still illegal in Canada. And people still get busted for those things. As you know, last year we were there protesting that way. But I tell people this, they simply do not believe it. Winnipeg's had several raids over the last few years with the police coming in again and again to these places. Prince Rupert, British Columbia, many other cities have had these raids. And so it's that civil disobedience and that standing up to it, I think, is so important. And then when you do get busted or you do have problems, going to court, standing up against it, fighting it in court, and getting those victories there. And that's really, I think, what's gotten us to where we are today.
Absolutely, and thank God for that. Social media has played a large part in bringing people together, I think. The advent of the internet and the onslaught of all the social media that's available today seems to have really connected the people together and allowed us a larger voice and a place to gather and plan. And it's really allowed the movement to evolve.
Well, and you and I are old enough to remember the time before the internet and when there wasn't such a thing, and how different it was. We used to print out flyers and pamphlets, which I still do, I guess, but I mean to a much greater degree back then. And so much of this information was so hard to find, and finding allies was very difficult as well because there was fewer of us and there wasn't these kind of online gathering places. And there's no question that the internet has been a huge advance for our movement and for other social change movements over the years, and really given us a place to gather, a place to get information that's forbidden information in Canada, and a place just to find like-minded people and share our experiences and reinforce each other's activism.
Yep, absolutely, 100%. Yep, for sure. You've been a busy guy the last 12 months since I've seen you last. We've spoken on a few occasions, and I haven't had a chance to meet up with you since then. We've both been quite busy, I guess. But boy, oh boy, you've been out there all over the place. We're going to get on some stuff with Dana and what he's been up to for the last 12 months. I guess we'll start off with your mailing, I guess, just after the Liberal election. That was quite interesting, Dana. You mailed off everybody in the Liberal Party, all the MPs, a copy of your latest book, Cannabis in Canada, An Illustrated History, along with a little present. You want to tell me about that?
Yeah, well, I had written this book, and I've been actually working on this book for almost 20 years now, and I'm quite proud of it, and the illustrator did a fabulous job in making it look beautiful. And it tells the story of cannabis in Canada from 1606, when the very first cannabis plants were planted, through the first couple of centuries of Canada, where the British and French governments really pushed for more cannabis hemp cultivation, during the 1800s and early 1900s, when you could buy pre-rolled marijuana joints at pharmacies all across Canada. Medical marijuana was very common, and up through all the activism to modern times. And I thought that since the Liberals have said they're going to be legalizing cannabis, they should learn this history. And it's a good time for them to refresh this, to learn and refresh themselves about this information. And I thought, a lot of them probably haven't had the chance to smoke pot for quite a while, and that I would give them a chance to sample some as well. And maybe them, or if not them, someone on their staff might have the opportunity to kick back and then smoke a joint of the gram of pot that I gave them, and take a flip to the book and entertain and amuse themselves and learn something. And also remember as well why so many other Canadians enjoy cannabis and like to use it, and why we think it's such a special plant. And I got a real mixed response, of course. Yeah, and I got a mixed response. I mean, the best answer I got was from a Liberal MP, Nathaniel Erskine Smith, who's actually a wonderful member of Parliament, who's been pushing for marijuana reform and drug policy reform since he got elected in a number of venues. And he tweeted me, "Dana, thanks for the gift. I haven't smoked it, brackets, yet." Which was a nice, funny little lighthearted comment, but I think some of the other, so that was good. But some of the other MPs, I think, got a little nervous about this and didn't know what to do about receiving this illegal product in the mail. One of them actually mailed it back to me, and a few others called the police and gave the police the gram of pot and gave them a copy of the book as well as evidence. And so I thought, well, I wanted the MP to read it, but maybe the police will read it and learn something about the history of cannabis themselves. So, these things work out somehow as they should. But people I got a lot of media, I got a lot of attention about it. I was on CTV and CBC and a bunch of other things. And some people were like, well, aren't you worried about being arrested, or they're going to come after you? And I said, well, I mail out hundreds of grams every day through my dispensary to people all across Canada. And, it would be pretty ironic if one of the first things the Liberals do upon coming in is sending the RCMP after me for a few grams of marijuana in the mail. Yeah. But it was a way to get some attention and to have some fun. And of course, nothing bad came out of it. And yeah, it was just a fun little stunt. But really, it's just to keep people's attention on it, and also to point out that people are getting all worked up and freaked out and calling the police over what really is just a little bit of plant matter sent to them. It's totally unprocessed, unaffected by anything, but just being dried out and put into a little package for them. Although the one guy in Prince Edward Island said that, I guess, the mail came in and then they were gone for the weekend, and it was only a gram, right? But he said he came back to his office and he was hit by a wall of this pungent aroma, and his whole office reeked like pot. And I thought, well, it was good weed, I guess. I mean, I didn't know it would be that strong, but, I don't really even notice the smell of marijuana. It's got to be pretty strong for it to affect me now, but that makes me kind of laugh anyways. I'm sure, they were chuckling about it in his office.
Yeah, I saw that one when it hit the paper, actually, and I was just about on the floor laughing. Yeah, just the whole blow up in the paper. It hit, and that you said it right on. That's exactly what it is. It hit me like a wall when I opened up the door, and I thought, you've got a gram in there, buddy. You're not talking about a pound or two here sitting in your office for a week locked up.
Well, it was some pretty stinky bud I sent, but yeah. But, the other thing is this sort of hypocrisy in that, okay, so I can do this because I'm a well-known white middle-class pot activist in Vancouver. But if I'm some First Nations person in Nunavut who gets caught with a couple of grams of weed, I'm going to get charged. My life is going to be affected very negatively. And it's not right that they depend so much on what part of the country you live in and what kind of person you are as to how these laws get enforced. I mean, it's ridiculous, and I can see if I was somebody who had just been charged for possession or for trafficking in a very small amount, and I'm like, wait a minute, this guy Dana Larsen can send pot to like Justin Trudeau, nothing happens to him, and I get caught in the parking lot here at Timmy's with a couple of grams, and they're charging me because I happen to live in Winnipeg or Nunavut or Prince Rupert or something instead of Vancouver or Toronto. Like, it really shows that these laws are so differently enforced across the country, and it's so unfair. And not that they should be charging me more or anything, but they should be really the charging people less, and that the Vancouver model and the Toronto model should really be all across the country. It's bizarre that in Toronto there's 100 dispensaries or more, and yet a couple hours north you try to open a bong shop and you get charged for selling bongs. Like, that's really not right and not fair for a country with one criminal law. It should be applied equally to all.
Absolutely, and that is the big thing. There is so much discrepancy, and it's exactly right. It depends where you live. It depends on your economical stature. It depends on the color of your skin. I mean, like, these things should not have any effect on what's going on with our laws. Not here in Canada. Like this, we're supposed to be multicultural, multinational, equal for all. So why aren't our laws being applied equally? And if they're laying off the laws for the majority, why aren't they doing it for all? The one issue that comes to mind is the guest that I had on last week, John Vergatos. He just got his charge reinstituted for seed sales. Like, that's utterly ridiculous to me with this new government.
I heard that he was having some troubles. I wasn't quite sure what it was. So they're coming after him for seed sales again now. From a while ago,
the charges that he had from years ago, and a new crown has been assigned to the district that is in control of where these charges lay dormant and basically stayed from the previous attorneys that were there. And the new guy come in and said, nope, I'm reopening the case. We're reinstituting the charges, and he's been recharged.
Wow.
So how is this happening in our country, this good old Canada, equal, fair for all? We have a prime minister that's not doing. We have a prime minister that's not doing anything about it.
It doesn't make.
We understand. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense at all. And I can tell you, after we come back from the commercial break, I've got a little story about a case which really doesn't make any sense whatsoever, and it has to do with these laws that we have here. So we're gonna go to break, and then we get back, we'll discuss that. So tonight our bumper music is by Les Mosquitoes and their song Ganja Sinsemilla. And then when we get back, Kim and I will continue this talk with our guest, cannabis author and blog writer Dana Larsen. This is the Pace Radio Show at lifestyleradio.ca.
The following is a public service announcement from the Canadian Medical Cannabis Partners Society. The Canadian Medical Cannabis Partners Society is a non-profit organization dedicated to ensuring improved access to therapeutic cannabis and cannabis byproducts in Canada. With a federal government that has committed to legalizing cannabis, we feel it is our duty to ensure that the medicinal use of cannabis doesn't get lost in the process and that there are clear distinctions made between the medicinal and recreational use of cannabis. It is our mission to ensure that government regulation doesn't get in the way of a sick, disabled, or terminally ill person's right to use or produce this amazing natural health product. If you would like to get involved, you can contact us on the internet, www.canadiantherapeuticCannabisPartners.com, on Facebook, CMCP Society, or search Canadian Medical Cannabis Partners.
This is Al Graham of the Pace Radio Show. Are you keeping pace, as in keeping people advocating cannabis education? If you're not, and you're a cannabis consumer, then why not? Others are working hard every day to help educate people about cannabis so you can enjoy your daily 420. Get involved and speak out. Be loud and proud so that you can keep pace. Tune into the Pace Radio Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to hear about people advocating cannabis education here on lifestyleradio.ca.
Growing your own vegetables, flowers, or even medicinal plants can be a challenge without the right equipment and proper know-how. At BMA Hydroponics, not only are they your urban horticultural experts and suppliers, but their staff holds the customer's needs paramount to making a sale. Family-owned with decades of experience and knowledge, they offer free advice in person, by phone, or email. BMA Hydroponics wants to ensure you have the advice you need, which is why you'll find tips and tricks on different ways to grow, like wick, ebb and flow, drip, or aeroponic system, as well as other helpful links at bmahydroponics.com. If you can't find what you're looking for, just let them know, and they'll do everything they can to get what you're looking for. At BMA Hydroponics, each staff member also possesses a federal exemptee MMAR license, making their strong suit empathy, experience, and dedication to their customers. Because when you know how to grow, you'll have results that make you proud. BMA Hydroponics in Belleville, Ontario. Visit bmahydroponics.com.
BMA offers cannabinoid testing, so if you want to prove you've got good medicine, head to BMA Hydroponics and prove it.
Or you can smoke it in a pipe. Double papers, extra long. Yeah, you know it's smoking all night. Ganja to me.
Hello and welcome back. You're listening to the Pace Radio Show here on lifestyleradio.ca, or you can also catch us on one of the many audio applications out there, such as Spreaker to Mixcloud. I'd also like to let you know that our friend Mike over at Coverage Radio Show, also heard here at Lifestyle Radio, he's live every Tuesday at 8 p.m., is holding its 4th annual Burger Records Revolution. This is an internet radio program that will feature music from Burger Records artists and from other indie artists as well. It's hosted and DJ'd by Michael Elridge, and Mike says that we have a great time taking part in last year's revolution. Let's make this one even more memorable. So, for this special, listen in on Lifestyle Radio this Saturday, beginning at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, for the show. And you can hear some of this great new music. So, tonight on the Pace Radio Show, I'm joined by our guest, author Dana Larsen, and my joint host, Northern Ontario, Kim Cooper. Kim, are you there?
I'm back with a smile, Al. How about you?
Good. Yes. I can see that smile too. Dana, okay. Before the break, you and Dana were talking about situations about people being arrested and stuff. I have a friend who I met with today. He's a patient, 70 years of age. In the last 3 years, he's been busted twice for 2 joints, and most recently for some roaches that he had in his vehicle. Now, we're talking about how our laws are uneven across the country. That's busting somebody for 2 joints, man.
Was he literally arrested for the roaches?
Yeah, he made an appearance. Yeah. Wow. And the judge just looked at them and told them, forget it. This is ridiculous. This is his 3rd time before him, and the last time, which would be the 2nd time he was charged for the 2 joints, they gave him 5 hours of community service. So he spent 18 hours because he enjoyed it so much, playing his guitar in a home for the elderly.
When does it become a point of harassment?
Exactly, and that's what it has become for this guy. So,
yeah. Any thoughts on that, Dana?
Well, it's ridiculous. There's police across the country have made it clear that they're not going to stop arresting people. They keep saying over and over again, we're going to keep busting people. We don't care. And the direction they're getting from Bill Blair on it is good. The law is still the law, and they should still keep arresting people. And Trudeau said the same thing yesterday when he was here in Vancouver. He said he opposed decriminalization because it didn't solve any of the problems around gangs and access to minors and that stuff. And it's true it doesn't solve those problems, but at the same time, it solves the problem of people being arrested for marijuana possession and the police wasting their time. There's one police arrest for marijuana possession in Canada every 9 minutes. That's like 160 a day, every single day, and there's no indication that is slowed down under Trudeau at all. And I think it's quite shocking. Where we understand it's going to take a while to get legal marijuana in the stores and to work out all the details for all these rules they want to put into place. But in the meantime, there's no reason to arrest anybody for possession, for personal cultivation, or for many other cannabis offenses. And in fact, we've got a petition that we've put together, and it's online at legalizepetition.ca. But this is actually part of a new thing the government's put together, online petitions for Parliament. And it's kind of like something that the White House did a couple of years ago, where you can, under our system, you've got to get an MP to sponsor it, and ours is sponsored by Elizabeth May. And then you have 120 days to collect online signatures on it. you only need 500 signatures to get Parliament or to force the government to respond like 45 days after you submit it, after those 120 days. It's a slow process, but we've already got 8,000 signatures on our petition. I'm hoping to get more than 50,000 by the deadline in June. Right now, we're number 4 on the list of most popular petitions, and we're also the newest one out of those 4. So all the other 3 above us have already been online for a couple of months and have been able to get more signatures. But I'm pretty confident that we're going to be able to get to the number 1 spot and show that for Canadians, this is an important issue, and we want it addressed sooner rather than later. Excellent. And this petition, and I'm excited. We worked with a bunch of groups on this petition, and it doesn't just calls for 8 things, and it's an immediate end to arrests for cannabis possession and for personal cultivation. It calls to get rid of the laws around bongs and pipes that are still on the books, as we mentioned earlier, that should be immediately removed, to let patients or their designated grower keep growing cannabis for themselves, which was just reaffirmed in that court decision we had recently, and to stop raids on community medical cannabis dispensaries. And then the next 4 things are what marijuana legalization should look like, and that's to get cannabis out of the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act, let farmers grow cannabis and harvest the resin as needed, expunge all criminal records for cannabis offenses from the past, and let any cannabis prisoners out of jail, at least for their cannabis offenses, and then let the provinces and territories and municipalities and First Nations be the ones to figure out the details for legalization. We'd rather have a provincial and municipal program than an overarching federal program, and I think it'll be easier for us to lobby our provincial governments to put, better things in place. And ultimately, like alcohol and tobacco, it really is provincial jurisdiction. Once the ban is removed off of cannabis, it's not really up to the federal government to figure out, to have jurisdiction over things like age limits and points of sale and whatnot. And, some provinces might try to introduce restrictive rules and others will have more open rules. But I think ultimately that'll give us more opportunities to experiment with different policies. And it's just sort of the way it should be. If they introduce a big, complicated federal program, we'll never be able to change that. It'll be very hard. But if we have 10 provincial programs that are all a little different from each other, then I think it'll be easier for us to see some different experiments going on between the provinces and find a model that works the best, and then they'll all kind of gravitate towards that. Right. So that's our petition, legalizepetition.ca, and we hope people will sign it and spread it.
Awesome. And just speaking to a couple of those points, I mean, we're not asking them to decrim for a permanent solution. This is for a decrim that we're asking for, requesting, is a temporary measure until they get their legalization platform in place. So their arguments for not doing it don't make any sense. It's nonsensical. The only thing that they're allowing to prosper with not allowing a decrim model happening immediately is the parade of prisoners and criminals going through the courts that aren't criminals at all. They're actually patients. But that's the only thing that is multiples here. Absolutely. That opposing this is doing. It's keeping people and patients in court.
Well, you couldn't be more accurate. It's wasting police resources. It's harassing people we've decided as a society are no longer going to mean to be criminals. And whatever legalization looked like, it's going to include the right to have an ounce of weed in your pocket, right? I mean, that's got to be part of it. And it's got to include the right to grow a few plants for yourself. So they should just get those things out of the way now. And they'd even been musing about erasing criminal records, which I think is good. Bill Blair and Trudeau both, they kind of said it's a possibility that they would look at expunging records in the future. But so what's the point of charging somebody now, and then, a year from now or 2 years from now, that person can then get their criminal record expunged? Like, it's just a big waste of time and money and human potential. And so they need to act on this. And some of their own MPs are calling for this. We got NDP, Murray Rankin, who's the justice critic, and other NDPers, including Mulcair, have been calling on Trudeau to immediately decriminalize while he figures out legalization. And even their own MPs, I mentioned him earlier, Nathaniel Erskine-Smith out there, has also been calling for his own government to get moving quickly to decriminalize possession and personal cultivation while they figure out the details. And I think that that's what we should be really pushing for now, is immediate action. These mandatory minimums are still in place, and people are still being charged and convicted under them, and that just makes no sense at all, considering, we elected Trudeau. The line I have is that Trudeau admitted to Canadians that he had broken the law, that he had smoked marijuana as an MP, and Canadians forgave him for breaking the law, and we elected him as Prime Minister. And yet now, if we get caught smoking marijuana, Trudeau doesn't want to forgive us. He wants us to be charged for something that he was doing just recently.
Yeah.
And his own brother, the late Michel, who was killed in an avalanche many years ago, but when his brother died, he was actually facing marijuana possession charges. And, when he got charged, do you think Trudeau said, oh, good, because the law is the law, and he should have been following the law? No, he said, that sucks, brother. I'm sorry you got charged. What a stupid law it is. I hope you'll be okay. And so it doesn't make any sense when these things, Trudeau's dad and mom and himself and his brother were all cannabis users, and yet he still wants us to wait a year or two and let another 50,000 Canadians get charged for possession. That's just not cool.
Yeah. And the backlog of patients waiting for this is outrageous as well. Just getting patients signed, the leery doctors and uninformed doctors, especially if you're not in one of the larger cities, if you're in the outskirts of any of the cities. I mean, the whole system, because of the stigma behind it and because it's still an illegal substance, that's why all of these stigmas still continue to exist. And they're hindering patients. Patients can't get legal, so they wind up breaking the law and self-medicating because they know that that's what's going to work for them. And now they're criminals as well, just for becoming a patient that doesn't have access to a doctor. I mean, it's a vicious circle. It's all connected with the stigma. And as long as it remains illegal or not being acted upon in any way by our federal government, the stigma is going to remain. And that's a criminal act as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I agree. The stigmatization of cannabis and cannabis users has been going on a long time and generations, and it's something that will take probably generations to overcome and realize what a bunch of baloney it is. And, the stigma really started back in the 1930s with these propaganda campaigns against marijuana users and all these outrageous statements about how many deaths and murders and slaughterings and crazy people were going insane because of marijuana use. And we know all that stuff was a pack of lies. And yet those kind of lies have been continuing on for so long now. And, it's interesting to see now, though, that companies like PharmaSave and Shoppers Drug Mart and them, or London Drugs, are talking about wanting to sell cannabis, and the liquor unions are lining up wanting to sell cannabis. And on the one hand, that's good. We want mainstream organizations to be in there and to be calling for legalization and that. But, I just can't help but be sort of frustrated and think it would have been nice to have these groups support when it was still illegal, or even now to have these groups supporting actually making things right and not just talking about how much money they're going to make, but, addressing the issues around it. And like the one of the vice presidents of Shoppers Drug Mart is on the board of the Partnership for a Drug-Free Canada, a group that has vilified marijuana and marijuana users for years. And for them now to say, well, we want to cash in and sell it, well, okay, I'm not against that, but why don't you say, hey, we're sorry for vilifying people. We're sorry. We were wrong on what we said about marijuana. We were wrong to call for prohibition. That's what I want to hear first, rather than the first thing out of their mouths is, we're going to make so much money and make this industry better and get rid of all those bad people that do it now. Like that's really outrageous and I think quite unsettling to see.
Yeah, well, and just the whole thing of them the insinuation that the bad people have it now. I mean, the people that have it now are the ones that brought it to where it is today. So we've as a whole, as a group and as a community, we've fostered a non-existent business, an illegal one, no less, into a flourishing industry in the entire country. So for bad people, I think we did a pretty damn good job.
Well, and the fact is, if there wasn't people willing to grow cannabis, brave enough to defy these laws for whatever reason, whether because they love cannabis, whether they want to make some money, whatever their reasoning is, if we didn't have people who grew cannabis and who bought and sold and worked in the cannabis industry over the decades in defiance of the law, we had nothing left. I mean, if the prohibitionists had won and marijuana had been wiped off the face of the earth and this plant had been driven extinct, which is what they want, what a terrible loss that would have been for our society, for our planet, for the human race if we no longer had this most wonderful of plants available to us. And so I really think we owe a debt of gratitude to all the smugglers, all the growers, all those people that produced and kept the cannabis culture going over the years. And, we owe a triple debt of gratitude to those people that weren't just in it for the profit motive and that put some of their money back in towards the greater cause of this plant. But even if they were just in it for the cash, I think that's still, something that ultimately has benefited everybody. And I think that we should be grateful for that because that's kept cannabis going through these dark ages, these past, 7 or 8 decades of prohibition.
Excellent. Yep. Absolutely, 100%. I mean, without all of that, we wouldn't be where we are today. That's for sure. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit. Tell me a little bit more about your book. How can people find it? We know it's an illustrated history of cannabis in Canada. You wrote it, and you had somebody do the art. And where is it available?
Yeah, the artist is a very talented fellow who has been working with this book for years, and you can find it online at cannabishistory.ca. I'm also the author of a couple of other books, Green Buds and Hash, the Dr. Seuss Green Eggs and Ham parody with a medical marijuana twist. Sorry. A medical marijuana twist. And my other book is Harry Pothead and the Marijuana Stone, a Harry Potter parody, which I've just reprinted for like the 4th time now, and it's available. And they're all online at cannabishistory.ca, or if you go to greenbudsandhash.com, you'll find all my books there as well. And I'm also going to bring them with me because I'm doing a national tour, which I'm going to launch in April. And I haven't really announced it to the media yet, so you're going to kind of get a scoop on this, I guess. But I'm going to be going across the country from city to city, and I won't be able to get too far north, but I'll be in Toronto on the 13th and 14th of April. And I'll be coming through Calgary, Edmonton, Saskatoon, Regina, Winnipeg, Ottawa, Montreal, and Halifax, doing pretty much one city a day. And what I want to do is give a talk about the history of cannabis in Canada and my book and that. I want to talk about how people can open a dispensary in their own town and how to be an activist. And I'll answer some questions for people as well. And then I'm going to give everyone a gift bag who shows up. And it'll be a free event, but people can donate, by donate if they want to put some money in. But it'll be a free event. But everyone who comes is going to get a copy of my book and some cannabis seeds as well, some viable cannabis seeds, because I want people to overgrow the government. And I'm actually launching, if you go to overgrowcanada.com, and this website, I think we've got it all finished now. It's about 98% finished anyways, but it should all be done. You can go check it out, overgrowcanada.com. I'll be putting out a press release on Monday to announce this to the media, but basically I've got like over 1 million cannabis seeds of both high CBD and high THC varieties, several large Ziploc bags full, a couple of buckets full. People have been donating and mailing me seeds, and I'm going to send them out to any Canadian who wants them in a pack of 10 for free. You can donate for the postage if you want to, but you don't have to. I'll mail them out for free. And the only proviso is that you've got to grow these seeds on your own property, proudly and freely. So I want Canadians to start growing a few plants in their window, on their patio, in their backyard, in their front yard, but to grow it openly. And then if you want to grow more around your town, I've got packages of 100 seeds that I'll send out to people if they want to plant them, in public areas and parks and things like that in their community. But basically,
wow.
We were, it'll be fun, hey? I think it'll be a great idea.
Oh my God! Well,
I was able to get a lot of seeds.
Yeah, there you go. You heard it here first.
Yeah, you can go to overgrowcanada.com and sign up and register for your seeds. We'll start mailing them out next week once I get it all in place. And to me, it's like, this is like I was saying, how it's a big civil disobedience campaign. And, when we started this, or when I got involved 2 decades ago, you couldn't buy a bong or a pipe or a grow book in Canada. And Mark Emery and others pushed forward the bong and pipe revolution and the information revolution in the early days and started opening up head shops across Canada. And like we were saying, they're pretty much legal now, except in some towns where they still get raided. And then we went to marijuana seeds, and marijuana seeds are widely available in Canada. And so books and bongs and seeds and vapor lounges are spreading around quite a bit. Dispensaries are everywhere. So you can sell marijuana quite openly in many cities, but you still can't grow it openly. That's the one last area where nobody's really growing cannabis openly, where nobody's doing that in the same way as they're selling it and all these other things. And so I think this is the last frontier for us, and we want this right. I think this is the time to do it, and we should seize this as Canadians and as cannabis users to start growing our own medicine. And there is a risk involved in growing this publicly, and some people might get charged or might have police interventions. I can't guarantee that everybody's going to, get away with this or whatever, and I'll certainly be there to help people, but I can't guarantee, any miracles there. But at the same time, what I can guarantee is that if you get involved and you do this, you'll be part of making history, and that you'll be able to be proud of what you're doing and to stand up for that, and that there's always a risk involved in these things. But if you only grow 5 plants, I don't really see anything too serious happening to anybody. I think if we all do it together, if 100,000 Canadians all grow cannabis openly across the country or more do, I think that will have quite a big impact.
Wow, that is fabulous. Okay, well, everybody, you heard it here first. Got the scoop from Dana Larsen on the Pace Radio Show tonight. We're going to do Overgrow Canada, courtesy of Dana Larsen. He's going on tour. You're going to have to go and see him to grab a book, grab the seeds, and support this cause. Let's get everybody out and get a hold of these seeds, and let's overgrow Canada. This is great.
That's awesome news, Dana. I overgrow Canada. Exactly. Well, we're going to talk more about this, I'm sure, as soon as we come back from our break. I wanted to make sure that Dana got all that in before I jumped in here. So, and while we're on break, we're going to hear a bit more music from Les Mosquitoes, and then when we return, Kim and I will continue this conversation with Dana Larsen. You're listening to the Pace Radio Show here at lifestyleradio.ca.
To twist up the ganja. Whoa, oh. Just pass me the papers and I'll see you later. Whoa, oh. 'Cause I like them nice and tight. I don't like them light and loose. I like.
Growing your own vegetables, flowers, or even medicinal plants can be a challenge without the right equipment and proper know-how. At BMA Hydroponics, not only are they your urban horticultural experts and suppliers, but their staff holds the customer's needs paramount to making a sale. Family-owned with decades of experience and knowledge, they offer free advice in person, by phone, or email. BMA Hydroponics wants to ensure you have the advice you need, which is why you'll find tips and tricks on different ways to grow, like wick, ebb and flow, drip, or aeroponic system, as well as other helpful links at bmahydroponics.com. If you can't find what you're looking for, just let them know, and they'll do everything they can to get what you're looking for. At BMA Hydroponics, each staff member also possesses a federal exemptee MMAR license, making their strong suit empathy, experience, and dedication to their customers. Because when you know how to grow, you'll have results that make you proud. BMA Hydroponics in Belleville, Ontario. Visit bmahydroponics.com.
BMA offers cannabinoid testing, so if you want to prove you've got good medicine, head to BMA Hydroponics and prove it.
The following is a public service announcement from the Canadian Medical Cannabis Partners Society. The Canadian Medical Cannabis Partners Society is a non-profit organization dedicated to ensuring improved access to therapeutic cannabis and cannabis byproducts in Canada. With a federal government that has committed to legalizing cannabis, we feel it is our duty to ensure that the medicinal use of cannabis doesn't get lost in the process and that there are clear distinctions made between the medicinal and recreational use of cannabis. It is our mission to ensure that government regulation doesn't get in the way of a sick, disabled, or terminally ill person's right to use or produce this amazing natural health product. If you would like to get involved, You can contact us on the internet, www.canadiantherapeuticCannabisPartners.com, on Facebook, CMCP Society, or search Canadian Medical Cannabis Partners.
Tune into the Pace Radio Show and catch Kim Cooper, Debbie Stoll-Skiffen, or Allison Murden, along with myself, Al Graham, as we talk to Canadian and international cannabis advocates who are working hard to help patients and to end cannabis prohibition. Catch us live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here at lifestyleradio.ca.
Cause I'm way too hot for y'all to understand me. No guarantees when I'm smoking trees. Just come along with me, sing the song with me in harmony if you feel the need.
Welcome back and thanks for tuning into the Pace Radio Show. We are being broadcasted live at lifestyleradio.ca, plus many other audio apps that are out there that you can download and have on your phone or have on your computer. It doesn't matter. Tonight's bumper music was by the Quebec-based band known as the Les Mosquitoes, and tonight's song was Ganja Sensimilia from the album Chasing the Dragon. If you enjoyed this song and want to hear more of their music, then I suggest that you go to lesmosquitoes.com to learn more. Tonight on the Pace Radio Show, I'm joined by our guest, writer Dana Larsen, and by my joint host, Northern Kim Cooper. Kim, you there?
Yep, I'm back.
Good. You just never know about those gremlins. They sprung up. They sprung up a couple weeks ago. So
yeah, okay. So far so good.
Okay, good. Before break, Dana, you had just released some information. Give us a scoop about how you plan on overgrowing Canada. For those who missed it, could you give us a little bit of a quick rundown again about it?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I've got about 1 million cannabis seeds, both high CBD and high THC varieties. And if you go to overgrowcanada.com and give me your mailing address and info, then I'll send you some seeds for free. I'll send you 10 either of which kind you like, or I'll send you 100 of the high CBD ones if you want to go plant them around your community as well. But the idea is not to go plant them in your neighbor's yard or anything, but to plant them in your own yard and to be proud and open about growing cannabis and to overgrow the government as a country together. And I'm going to be doing a national tour as well in April, and it's on the overgrowcanada.com website. I'm still booking in the details, but I'll be in the Toronto area on the 13th and 14th, and I'll be going to Hamilton and going to some of the surrounding areas of Toronto. But then I'll be heading off to Montreal and Halifax. And so if you want to come see me and hear me talk and get some seeds and a free copy of my book and some other goodies, then come along and do that. And if you can't make it in person, then check out overgrowcanada.com and sign up there, and I'll send you some free seeds. And you can donate for the seeds if you want. It costs me about $2 per person to mail them out. But either way, I'm happy to send them out and get them to those who need. And I'm hoping that we'll get like 100,000 people growing cannabis all across the country this year. That would be wonderful. And I think a good way for us to seize our rights.
Excellent. What an empowering idea for the masses and for the population, and especially offering with the CBD versions and stuff. I mean, everybody grows 5 plants in their front yard openly and freely. Not really much that's going to happen to you, even if they decide to give you a hassle about it. In the end, not much really going to happen to you, especially if the courts wind up overflowed with these. Then the police are going to have their hands tied, and it's time that we do this. I congratulate you, Dana, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart, from all of Canada, for your empowering move here. That's just fantastic, and thanks for the scoop.
Right on. Well, yeah, it'll be exciting. I just hope people take the opportunity to get involved and make this a reality so we can overgrow the government together. You
know what they say, they can't arrest the whole country.
That's right.
Yeah, and exactly. And I think if we it's about standing together. It's about civil disobedience, and I think this is the time. I'm not sure I would have advocated this under the Harper regime, but I think now is the time for us to seize our rights and to move forward on this.
Awesome. Excellent. Excellent. What a fantastic thing. And I wish you much success. I wish us all much success in this. And yeah, you heard it here first on Pace, on Lifestyle Radio from Dana Larsen himself. And this is going to be a fabulous thing. Everybody contact Dana and go and see him on his tour and check out his fabulous book, Cannabis in Canada, an Illustrated History, his latest book that he's just come out with, one of many, a few anyways, 3 of them now. And I can't wait for your next one.
I got a bunch more lined up. I just need to get the money to print them, but I've got one already done, actually. Another different artist has done it. It's called The Pie-Eyed Piper. And it's a takeoff on the it's going to be a beautiful book. I'm waiting too, but I need to get the money to print it, and that's probably going to be a couple of months before I can do that.
Right on. Let's overgrow Canada first.
Mm-hmm.
Just for the listeners, any listeners that are in the Kingston area. When I was in Kingston today at the 420 store, Kingston 420, they had the copies of your book there available for people to walk in and buy.
Excellent. Well, glad to hear it. We'll go down there and support those guys and grab a copy of my book and whatever else you need while you're there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.
There they were on display.
Fantastic.
Yep, even had a sign in the window.
Local support. Look at that. Ray Kingston. Yay!
Yeah, in the same town that unfortunately my friend has had some problems with, but the Kingston.
Ironic.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I've attended a few things there in Kingston over the years.
Yeah. Yep. Speaking of attending events, I'm going to switch gears here a little bit. Last time we saw you, I want to give a shout out to the town that started it all in Northern Ontario, for me anyway. We held a rally, and that was your first visit with me up here in the north, Dana. And we had a rally in good old Kirkland Lake. Ray, hey Kirkland Lake, how's it going? Yeah, we held a rally out there for a nice young man named Darren Delaney. Had a great shop, Trippin' Daisy, fabulous little corner shop there, had a little bit of everything in there, fantastic community support. And lo and behold, what happened? We had the local OPP in Kirkland Lake decide they didn't want this young man's business. They went in and they raided him. They took all of his supplies, all of his inventory, confiscated it all, and charged him with selling paraphernalia. This goes back to touching on what we were talking about at the beginning of the show. Bong shops are still illegal, people. They are against the law currently today. The police have the right to shut them down if they so choose to do so. Dana, you so graciously came out here to help us, and I thank you so much. What did you think of your experience in Kirkland?
Oh, well, it was a wonderful rally and community support, and I was told it was the first thing of anything like that had ever been done in Kirkland Lake, so I was really happy to be able to help make that happen and sort of be a spark for that event, and I think people felt good about getting out and sort of standing up to the police in a very peaceful way and that, but same time, we might have sort of won the battle in terms of getting out there and standing up, but the Tripping Daisy, as far as I know, is no more. At least the owner had to shut it down and sell it. I don't know if it's still operating or not, but he was basically driven out of business. Yeah, so he was driven out of business. So, I mean, it's frustrating. And same in Prince Rupert. A few years ago in 2013, they raided a couple of stores up there, and I flew up there and even I made a trophy and gave it to the RCMP for the most wasted police time award to sort of make fun of them for raiding this place. And it got a lot of attention, and everyone gave the cops a hard time. But at the end of it, the store still out of business. He couldn't afford to stay there with the police harassing him and with the financial losses. And so these are very challenging situations to be in. I feel bad that we weren't able to keep his store open and keep him there, but at least we told the police, how the community feels and that we think this kind of stuff is a real waste of resources and that. But it's still frustrating, and that these things still happen, and people are so oblivious to that this is happening across the country. Every year or so, a couple of stores get raided, and it's just not right. Yeah. But I said it was great being there. I'm really pleased I was able to go up there. I like coming to the smaller northern communities because that's where the drug war is the worst. The further north you go in Canada, the worse things get. There's the strip along the bottom of the many big cities where things are pretty mellow, and if you go up within the provinces but still north, charges for trafficking and possession are significantly higher than if you go up across the provincial territorial borders into Northwest Territories and Nunavut. Charges are drastically higher in Canada. And like we were saying earlier, we have one set of laws in Canada, and yet they are enforced very differently depending on where you live, depending on the color of your skin and your last name, and depending on just which officer you get in the luck of the draw. And that's really not right. And so I think, what happened in Kirkland Lake with that store there, what happened in Prince Rupert, what happens in Winnipeg, it's all the northern part of the country, and we got to make sure that when cannabis is legalized, it's not just in Vancouver and Toronto, but it's in every city and town in every part of the country, including the far north, where really people need cannabis probably more than anywhere else for a lot of reasons.
Yeah. Well, I find, the event was inspiring. We were very saddened by the fact that the Tripping Daisy did in the end have to close. He couldn't come through the losses of the confiscated property. It was, several thousands of dollars of property that was confiscated, never returned, and it never will be. And there's no compensation for that money. And for a small business to take that hit within 6 months of opening, it's not chances of survival are very small, and they know that, and that's why they do it. And we had the rally in order to save them, and it raised public awareness. But that's why I like to talk about it, because people that are in other small towns, this hasn't happened there yet. But if you've not been rallied around, if you have not garnered some public support, if you have not made yourselves known that you will not be bullied, it will happen to you out there. That's why you need to organize, get rallies going, start hosting 420 and friendly cannabis events in your towns, in your small towns now, before it happens in your town, because you're only one step away from the Tripping Daisy.
Oh, I absolutely agree, and we've got to keep pushing that. And I think, even if you don't win that battle, at least you make a noble stand. At least you're telling the police you're not willing to stand up to that. You're willing to stand up for this. You're not going to stand for it, and maybe it makes them think about it next time, and maybe it makes it easier for the next person. But I think it's always worth fighting these battles and bringing these things forward, whatever the result is. And it takes a long time, and sometimes I've seen before where stores have gone under, but someone else comes forward and tries that, and maybe the next person has a different tactic or a different experience. In Saskatoon, there's new dispensaries opening up, even though they've raided some of them. And in Halifax, there's new places opening up, even though they've raided and gone after some of the other folks. So sometimes it takes 2 or 3 people, going through this process until somebody can make it stick and find a way to keep their business going.
Yeah, and you'll find that I think that possibly you'll get less hassle from local police if you're already an established community within the community that you live in. If you already have established a cannabis community there that has some support and has some recognition, and you've already made yourselves known, you're less apt to get pushed around.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It depends so much on the local police and this and that, and a lot of times when the Bong Shops get raided, it's somebody new that's coming to town, like Tripping Daisy or like in Prince Rupert where it was a Chad 420. And in fact, in both cases, there was already another shop in town that sold bongs and pipes, but did it more discreetly and wasn't like a head shop. And in both cases, when the cops decided to go after this new head shop, they also went and busted the other guy who had been quietly selling bongs and pipes for a long time.
Yeah.
So it really shows it's more of a cultural thing. They don't mind if you sell bongs and pipes. They just don't want you having a pot leaf in your window or giving yourself a marijuana-related name. They just want you to be hidden and more secretive than that, and not be proud of what you're doing, right? Yeah, which is ridiculous, right? And I mean, it's not like they weren't, but no, our movement has made tremendous progress in Canada over the last 20 years, and the fact that these raids, we consider them rare and outrageous and not an everyday thing, I think is important, but we still got to make this so there's no more raids ever, especially for bongs and pipes. It's just ridiculous. These are safety harm reduction devices that make cannabis safer to use. No matter what you think about cannabis, using it in a water pipe is safer than not, or in a vaporizer is safer than not. And so, that should be the policy, harm reduction, and help people have healthy experiences. And often that includes these kind of devices.
Absolutely. 100%.
Absolutely correct, because it doesn't make sense to be arresting people for bongs, man.
Yeah.
Available everywhere, so.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, well, especially when,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, especially when you can drive 4 hours south and you can have 100 dispensaries selling you all kinds of marijuana, you know, and then you go north a few hours and you can't even get a bong, right? Like, what kind of deal is that?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, Dana, you know, we could talk to you for probably another couple hours, but we all don't have that
Sounds
time.
good. Sounds good. We're going late tonight. Sounds good to me. Amen.
Next time.
That's not a problem. Next time is not a problem. Okay. Dana, this is the point of the show where we get you to promote your websites where people can find you, especially with this seed thing. You can repeat that, so on and so forth. And your book and everything.
Sure. So there's overgrowcanada.com. That's the website where you can get your free cannabis seeds, and you can also find out when I'm going to be in different cities across Canada. There's legalizepetition.ca. That'll explain all the details of our petition and how you can sign it and share it and get it out there. And then for my stuff, if you go to greenbudsandhash.com or cannabishistory.ca, both of those will get you into my books for sale and my personal website, and when new books come out, they'll be there as well. And those are the big 3 or 4 websites, and go check them out and find out more about how you can get involved.
Fantastic.
Good. I can just see people now hitting the pause button, trying to write this stuff down so they can get those seeds and they can grow.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes. Overgrow.
Okay, Kim.
Yeah, I got a shout out tonight actually from a brand new company that sent me a package actually of a nice sample package. It's Maui Wowie premium all natural hemp rolling papers using all natural glue. I checked them out today. These papers are fantastic. They're very thin, they're durable, clean burn, nice glue, durable and thin. Awesome papers. One of the nicest ones I've used.
Well, I've never tried those papers, but I know
brand new company out.
Yeah. Well, I know I've tried the strain Maui Wowie. First time I smoked that was in front of a police station. So.
Yeah, man. So check these guys out at MauiWowieRollingPapers.com.
Hey, just a reminder to let everybody know that I will be back live again next Wednesday with my joint host, Allison Murden, and her special guest, as we continue to promote those who are fighting to bring an end to cannabis prohibition. You can find the Pace Radio Show on Facebook and on Twitter at Pace Radio, and we can also be found on the web at pace-online.ca, or you can find us by searching for people advocating cannabis education. Thank you to go out to our sponsors, the friendly folks at BMA Hydroponics, and I believe Ross is going to be on the 420 radio show this coming Friday at 7 o'clock. And they're located in Belleville, Ontario. Al Rapp of lifestyleradio.ca, big thank you to him. Huge thank you to our guest, author and writer, and a man with many hats, Dana Larsen, and to my joint host, Northern Ontario, Kim Cooper. Plus a big thank you to you, our listeners, for tuning into the program. Thank you, and good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, and good night.
So what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.